ขอกราบคารวะพระเถระพระมหาเถระพระเถระพระสงฆ์พระเนนทุกรูปขอเจริญพรญาติโยมสวัสดีปีใหม่คืนนี้เข้านิมนต์แสดงธรรมเป็นภาษาอังกฤษก็เลยจะถามก่อนนั่งอยู่ที่นี่คนไทยนะยกมือไหว้คนที่ฟังออกเข้าใจภาษาอังกฤษมีสักกี่คนหนึ่งโอ้น้อยมากFor the non-Thai speakers, I was just asking how many people here understand English, and I think there was about 2 hands went up. Is there anyone who's not Thai or a non-Thai speaker here? Would you like to put your hand up? One over there, two, a few more. Okay, there's a few. ก็เป็นอันว่ามีคนฟังภาษาอังกฤษออกประมาณ10 คนคนที่ฟังไม่รู้เรื่องประมาณ 3,000 กว่าคนแต่หลวงพ่อสุบินก็ให้เทศภาษาอังกฤษก็เลยคนไทยที่ฟังไม่รู้เรื่องก็ตั้งใจปฏิบัติภาวนาถวายพระเดชพระคุณหลวงพ่อชาเป็นอาจารย์บูชาเหมือนพระฝรั่งสมัยก่อนเข้ามาอยู่ที่วัดหนองบะพงพูดภาษาไทยไม่รู้เรื่องฟังไม่ออกแต่ต้องนั่งฟังเทศทุกวันโดยการไม่รู้เรื่องคือนิยมจะได้รู้จักว่าเป็นยังไง So for the 10 of you who understand English, tonight I'm going to give a talk in English because that's what the Sangha has asked me to do.So I'm very happy to be here and wish you all a good evening and a happy new year. I've travelled here with another monk, Venerable Dhammawitiko from Buddha Bodhivana Monastery near Melbourne, Australia, which is a branch monastery of Ajahn Chah. It's been there for about 18 years and Many people have been asking me, is the monastery still there? Because they've heard about these bushfires in Australia and they're worried if our monastery has been burnt down or the forest has. Well, as you know, much of Australia has been burnt over the last few months, mainly through natural causes, from the effects of particularly a drought, heavy drought, a long-lasting drought, hot weather,and a lot of thunder and lightning which sets off fires in the forest, and the eucalyptus forest in Australia burns very well. So unfortunately much of it has burnt this year. But on the good news is that our monastery hasn't burnt and there haven't been any fires anywhere near. So it's still functioning. The monks and novices, lay people there are still very happy practicing.It just reminds us that this world is changing all the time. Whatever reason you attribute to the change, whether it's global warming, the effects of humans, or just nature itself, what is certain is that the world is uncertain. It's changing all the time. Whether we're talking about the climate, the environment, or people, society, the economy,all kinds of things change all the time. We have to live with uncertainty. What in Thai, the Thais know as anicang. The world is not certain, it's impermanent and changing. And that's a reason why many people come to this monastery and come into Buddhism as a whole, because they're looking for some certainty amidst the uncertainty of the world.It's not just bushfires that affect us all as human beings. We have in Ubon last year they had terrible flooding. Many villages along the Moon River and its tributaries were affected. It doesn't matter whether it's a bushfire or a flood. If it comes to you and your house, then you're stuck. You have to just get out of there, otherwise you die. Or many other things, man-made tragedies. We still have wars, people firing missiles at each other, hitting innocent people in aeroplanes without realizing what they're doing. War is always a terrible thing and really should be given up by now, but unfortunately we still kill each other in wars and armed conflicts. Or just accidents. As we all know, people die every day in Thailand on the streets and the roads through car accidents. Very high number of deaths per year, or injuries through car crashes, car accidents. And obviously many other ways people are affected by accidents, technology, things going wrong. So our world is a very uncertain place. And often people think the way to deal with that is to try and control the world as much as possible. Or at least control the world around us as an individual as much as possible. So for those of you staying here in tents, that means maybe sweeping the leaves desperately every day to get rid of the ants. Okay? Try and control your world so you don't have ants coming into your tent. Or moving your hands around to get rid of the mosquitoes. Or trying to cool yourself down, having a shower when it's very hot. All kinds of things we do every day to try and control our world. And they're not necessarily wrong. They might actually be quite wise and useful things to do. But the flavor of our life is that things change all the time. And people find that the Buddhist teachings are very good for helping us to deal with that. Because the Buddha encouraged us to look back at our own minds, our own experience of body and mind as human beings every day, to understand the nature of this world. And Ajahn Chah, as a disciple of the Buddha, was somebody who did that very well. He understood his own body and mind very well, and in particular understood the way stress and suffering arises in a human mind, but also how to deal with it, how to remedy it. And so, sometimes we call the Buddha the great doctor, because the suffering, the stress we have as human beings is a kind of disease, isn't it? Normally we think of disease, illness as something affecting the body, but our mind also gets diseased. We don't have always have happiness and good things happening to us. We don't always feel content or at ease. But one thing I particularly, and I think many of you have found, is that the Buddha seems to have a good remedy for all our disease and our stress and our suffering. The teachings of the Buddha can't remove every kind of painful experience from our life, but he taught us how to understand it and to avoid making more pain and suffering for ourselves and others. So living in the world, the first thing he pointed out is this world is constantly changing. The world is something we understand from our body and mind, our own point of view. So we say sankhara anicca. So mental formations, physical formations are impermanent. That means this body, this mind are impermanent. They're constantly changing. They're conditioned things affected by the environment, what we do, how we relate to the world. And the Buddha pointed out that the more we study this, the more we can see where suffering and stress arises in our life. We have to learn to pay attention inwards, turn our attention inwards. And this is something, again, that's the flavour of practice in this monastery, Wat Nong Bapong, Ajahn Chah's monastery. Many of you probably didn't meet him personally. Some of the older ones did. But if you've read his talks, heard his talks, or hearing the talks of his living students, the monks and nuns here and in all the other branch monasteries, you'll get to understand some of the things that Ajahn Chah taught. And he was encouraging us to look back at our own selves as much as we can, because the real root causes of our stress, our suffering, what we call dukkha, or in Thai we say tuk, it starts inside us. And the causes for further suffering will originate inside our own hearts and minds. So it's in our own interest to study there, to look more closely there. Modern education society tends to value studying externally. So we go to school, go to college, university, we get trade, we get skills, and some of you maybe even send your kids overseas to do this, to foreign universities, foreign schools, to get education in other languages as well. But in all these places, they don't talk very much about the origins of suffering in the human heart or mind, not like Ajahn Chah. So many people have found over the years, even though the education we get and the knowledge we get from the world and about the world is useful, it helps us to get careers, make money, pay the bills. Over the years, they've realized that sometimes the best kind of knowledge is actually the knowledge you get from enlightened beings like Ajahn Chah or from the Buddha, because it's the kind of knowledge that actually makes your mind go quiet and peaceful through understanding the way things are. There's a lot of the knowledge in the world doesn't bring your mind peace, it just brings up more questions, more mental proliferation, more stress, more suffering. So it's probably, you would have to admit then, maybe not such good knowledge, because everybody in this world wants to be happy. And if knowledge is bringing you more stress, or your relationship to that knowledge is bringing you more stress, then there's something wrong. That's probably why you're all here, even though you don't understand the word I'm saying most of you. We're here because we're learning knowledge about ourselves, and particularly how to bring peace and happiness up in our minds, and also how we can share that and pass that on to others as well. So Luang Por Chah was somebody who encouraged us to learn about ourselves from our own experience, but to do that we need tools, we need help. So you'll see in the monastery we have many practices that help us. We have what we call the Vinaya, the Buddhist monastic training, which is centered around the Patimokkha discipline, the rules of training of the monks, and also various books and commentaries. The one that Luang Por Chah used a lot, Pubasika Vanana, I forget what the translation in English is, but it's a commentary which gives many rules and practices for Buddhist monks. He emphasized this a lot as the beginning of our training. The monastery is a place of training. Just as the same as you go to a college or university or school, you train in certain knowledges and skills, a monastery is a place of training. So when you come here, that's the responsibility you take on. It's not a place where you can just do exactly what you want. If you want to do exactly what you want, well, stay at home or go somewhere else. But in a monastery, you come in, you're coming to learn. So there's a training system. We call it the bhikkhu system of training, but it's for everyone, for monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen. And Luang Por Chah founded his teaching on that, the bhikkhu system of training, or what we call the Dhamma Vinaya, which is all about helping us to provide a good environment, a place where we can develop this introspection, the ability to turn and look inwards at our own mind and understand it better, and root out some of the causes of suffering, slowly or quickly, depending on our efforts and our skills, but learning how to do that. So there's monastery regulations, there's a schedule, there's ways of doing things in a monastery. So Wat Nong Bapong is famous for people coming here, as you know, you come here and practice. There's a wake-up bell at 3 a.m., which for many people is the most dreaded sound of the day. When I used to live here many years ago, you'd hear the wake-up bell at 3 a.m. Or maybe you'd wake up just before it and you think, oh no, it's about to go. Why did I have only get such small amount of sleep? Well, because Luang Por Chah encouraged us to practice mindfulness, wakefulness, and use time well, not to waste time sleeping, just to sleep enough to get by, to keep the body healthy. So there's a wake-up bell at 3 a.m. Then you come together here for meditation, for chanting. Then after that, the monks go on alms round. Those left in the monastery will help clean up, prepare food for the day's meal. At the moment we have a retreat, so we have many dana food stalls at the front. Then later in the day we have sessions of meditation, sitting meditation, walking meditation, teaching, and so on, right through till this time at night. So every day there's a certain amount of group practice in a routine. Then we have rules of training to do with how we conduct ourselves and what we can and can't do. So all of you have taken on what we call the 8 precepts, your Atta Sila, you're wearing white, and you took the 8 precepts in the morning. That's a responsibility you take on in a monastery. You come, you agree for this time at least, and hopefully for longer, you're not going to kill animals or hurt each other as human beings physically, not physically harm or kill a living creature. You take on the rule of respecting property as well as life, so we don't steal. So if everybody is keeping the 8 precepts properly, you can leave your things down and you don't have to be afraid somebody will pinch your stuff. Not everybody keeps the 8 precepts, unfortunately, but most people do. In our monastery in Melbourne, regularly people, I don't know why, but they leave their wallets, their handbags, forget them, go home, and then ring up and say, oh, I forgot my handbag or my wallet. Maybe it has a credit card in it, even cash. But we always return it to the owner. Nobody in the monastery thinks of stealing such things because we're training in the precepts. And that's what you're all doing at this time. You're respecting each other's life, property. You practice the abrahmacharya, the 3rd precept. So you're celibate. We don't engage in sexual activity. We're not here for dating or finding a partner. We're here to practice the Dhamma for Nibbana. We practice musawada, not lying, not indulging in false speech, malicious speech, gossip, foolish speech. And the word for foolish speech is sampapalapa, idle chatter. It even sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? Sampapalapa. It sounds like blah, blah, blah. A lot of our chatter in life is just idle chatter, wasting time, and it doesn't produce mindfulness or wisdom. It just takes our mind away from the Dhamma. We practice sobriety to help our mindfulness, so we don't drink. We don't drink or take drugs. We practice not eating afternoon. As Luang Por Kampong says regularly here, he says, you can eat as much as you want when it's mealtime, but after that, finish. You don't get a second chance. You get your one meal and you can take as much as you feel you need, but then you leave it for the rest of the day so that you have an empty stomach or only slightly full stomach in the evening, and then meditation becomes much easier. As you all know, the afternoon session is quite hard. If you've got a full stomach from the morning, you come in here at 1 o'clock to meditate, you're falling asleep very easily. So if we're modest in the use of food, that will help our meditation. Regularly you hear people coming here, they're not talking about the practice of Buddhism or meditation, they're just talking about what food they've tried at the dana stalls out front. Especially now there's an international flavor to the event. Many people come from around the world, so you hear, oh, today I had some Italian food, and there was some Japanese food, and there was some Northeast Thai food, and then there was some Southern Thai food, and then I had my milk coffee and donuts, and then I had... It's just a list of food, one after the other. But that, of course, is not the real purpose. The food is provided by volunteers just to sustain us for the practice. We don't have any entertainments either. We don't have music, movies, other things. Our entertainment is the Dhamma. We find enjoyment in the practice of Dhamma, keeping the precepts, putting effort into our meditation, listening to the Dhamma, chanting, and so on. So, practicing in the monastery, there's a structure. We have our precepts, we have our routine, we have many practices that support harmony. You have a famous saying in Thailand, Sukhasa Samaki. We get happiness from harmony. You're all practicing here now, sitting together in harmony. We're not arguing, fighting, competing, so everyone benefits. This is something Luang Por Chah emphasized a lot in a monastery because it's a public place. You live together as a community. So if everyone can work together in harmony, whether it's doing chores or practicing meditation or walking on alms round, whatever, the harmony makes life easy. Imagine if everybody here was following their own views and opinions, we'd just end up with one big argument. Be arguing over the right way to do the work, the right way to meditate, the right way to chant. It wouldn't be much fun with so many people if we were all going our own way. So Luang Por Chah very smart, and this is how the Buddha taught as well. We need to work together, cooperate together, work in harmony, and then we all benefit and get a good environment for the practice. We look after the place. We have to learn how to look after the forest, look after the trees, look after the animals, look after each other. So if someone's sick, we look after them. There are many practices we do in the monastery that support the community as a whole so that we can live peacefully, harmoniously, even though we still inside still have our attachments, wrong thinking, we have our greed, anger, delusion, of course. But if we develop and put effort into developing harmony on the outside, at least we can live together without having a big conflict. All the things that are offered to the monastery, whether it's the food, the funds, money, the other requisites that are used, they all go to a central store, or they go to the central bank account, or they go to the kitchen, and then they're shared out so everybody gets a chance. Otherwise, again, it would be a free-for-all. Everyone would be competing for the offerings, and that would immediately cause disharmony. So like with food, the monks go out on alms round. Every bit of food brought back is sent back to the kitchen and shared out on the tables. All the food that is offered is shared out. Nowadays, we're lucky, lots of food, so nobody's starving, nobody's struggling. In the old days, there wasn't so much food. Maybe a banana would come in, and that'd have to be cut into tiny little slices just to make sure everyone had a little piece, and some people would go without. If you were a novice or a junior monk in the old days, you often missed out on a lot of the good food. Very skinny. When you get older, you get fatter like me, but when you're young, you're skinny because often there wasn't that much food. But you didn't get the feeling you were being deprived or bullied. It was just the fact that in those days things were poorer, the support was less. But whatever came in, you divided up, you shared, you helped each other. So people would be looked down on, frowned on if they started to hoard food. Like one of the monks said, going around in the tents, of observing people at their tents at this event this year. Some people are so scared they're not going to have enough food, they go back with piles of food, hide it in their tent. Then they get instant karma, and the ants all come up and start bothering them because they got food hidden in their tent. You learn not to do that. You learn just to take what you need, the food you need, and then let go and share what's there with everybody else. This is something very amazing in the world, to have thousands of people being fed by volunteers. You're not paying for this food, you're being provided with food, electricity, accommodation, teachings, everything is provided free. There's not many places in the world where you get such high quality teaching and supportive environment free. There's not much free left in the world, everything costs money. Nowadays, even Dhamma costs money. They charge you if you want to go and stay on retreat somewhere. But Wat Pah Pong, they don't charge you. You come. You don't get a lot. You get a space in the forest. You get your bowl of food. You get a place to have a bath. So you don't get a lot, but you get enough, and it's all free. Nobody asks anything from you other than you just practice. And that was always the flavor of Ajahn Chah's way of practice. You come here out of faith. Nobody forces you to come, but you can't expect much. You get whatever share of the food there is, share of the accommodation. In Thai we say, "Yu ngai, gin ngai, non ngai." Means live easily, eat easily, sleep easily. If you can learn to do that, then your mind can settle down very easily. It becomes quiet quickly. Mindfulness comes up quickly. Why is the world so full of confusion, suffering, and competition? It's because we're not easy. We go home and we're very fussy. Do they have that word in Thai? มีคำว่า fussy มีไหม fussy จุกจิก We're fussy. We've learned to be fussy because it's a consumer society. And a consumer society wants us to be fussy, wants us to choose different brands, different fashions, the latest fad, the latest fashion. But you stop and think about it, it's making our mind very confused when we're fussy. So Luang Por Chah was helping us to remedy that. It's giving us this medicine, the medicine from the Buddha. Learn to be content with what comes your way, rather than always being fussy, choosy, following your preferences. So we learn to live easily, accept what comes our way. It's good enough. All the senior monks here who live with Luang Por Chah, they've all done that for like 30, 40, 50 years. They didn't die. They're still here. And they've lived very well. So obviously there's another kind of happiness that comes just from practicing in a good way, keeping the precepts, following the routine, living easily, not demanding a lot. It makes your mind very peaceful, very happy. Why do people come here in such large numbers? Because there's some happiness to be found here. It's not always easy, of course. When you live in this way, live simply, you have to put effort into that, to stay in a tent, get up early in the morning, eat one meal a day. It's a challenge. It requires some effort. But the advantage and the fruits of that effort are that your mind becomes easily calm and you start to see the causes of suffering. When greed arises, you see it. When you're not getting what you want, you see that. You see the fussy mind, the complaining mind. One of the things I remember when I first came to Wat Pho Phong 36 years ago, people didn't complain. They just got on with it. If there was a lot of work to do, they just did it. They didn't complain. If the weather was hot, they didn't complain. If there were too many mosquitoes biting you in the old sala, it was full of mosquitoes. You could see them swarming around. You didn't complain. You just got on with your meditation. Whatever the situation was, you just got on with it. Nowadays, everybody complains. This is not right. That's not right. I don't like this. I don't like that. And so they're not peaceful. They can spend all day complaining. Sometimes you hear complaining in Thai is kibon. มีคน kibon ไหม Complaining. The people complain, and this is not right, that's not right. So of course when they come to meditate, that's what their mind is full of, complaints. So Luang Por Chah encouraged us not to complain. Accept the way things are and get on with it. Get on with your practice. Don't think too much about it. Of course, we can always improve things, and particularly Luang Por Liam has spent many years improving the monastery, providing all these facilities for you, making it work for you. But it'll never be good enough for your mind if you give in to all your desires and all your wants. So Luang Por Chah used to say, kick it out, kick out the desires, the wants. If you've got enough to eat, you've got a place to sleep, it's good enough, get on with your practice. Don't waste time, because life is uncertain. We don't know how long we've got. Nobody sitting here knows when they're going to die. It could be today, it could be next year, it could be in 50 years, but we don't know. And you can't risk, like most people, they risk it, don't they? They say, well, I'll do my practice when I'm 60. Maybe they're 30, 40 years old. They say, oh, it's too boring to go to the monastery now. I'm going to do it when I'm 60, like all the other grannies. Then they get to 60 and they got no energy left. And they can't sit on the floor because their legs hurt. And they can't cope with keeping the 8 precepts. It's too difficult. If their children bring them to the temple, they've got to go and stay in the hotel in Ubon. It's too difficult because they left it too late. It's a risk, isn't it? Or maybe you just won't be here. Maybe you won't be here next year. Maybe you want to be here next year, but maybe you won't make it. Die. It can happen. Or you get injured, or things change. So don't risk it. Start practicing now. What is the most important thing in our life? Well, it's training this mind to understand the Dhamma, that craving, attachment are the cause of suffering. Recognize that and then start letting go of craving and attachment as they arrive. And everything in the monastery is designed to help you do that, from the routine, the rules of behavior, the meditation practices, the place. It's just a forest. There's not much here. So you'll get many desires and attachments come up. Ajahn Chah used to say that's good. If you're suffering a bit, you've got some attachments, that's where you can learn the Dhamma, that's where wisdom will arise. You have to practice that, watching where is attachment coming from, what can I do to let it go. Sometimes you just let it go by not grasping hold of it, not giving into it, you just let it pass by. Other times you have to work very hard because we have different kinds of attachment. Some of our attachment is just competing with other people, looking at others people all the time, dissatisfied. Why do they get it better than me? Life is so unfair. Why do they get all the fun? Why do I not get the fun? What for me? We have that kind of thought. We get angry with other people or jealous of other people. Sometimes it's just our greed. You just want more. As Ajahn Kampong was saying in the last talk, you get 100 baht, you want 1,000 baht. You get 1,000 baht, you want 10,000 baht. You got 10,000 baht, you want 100,000 baht. You get 100,000 baht, you want 1,000,000 baht. You get 1,000,000 baht, you want 10 million baht. There's no river as long as the river of Danha. Menamun is not as long as the river of Danha. The river of Danha is the longest river in the whole world. If you give in to craving, it just takes over your mind. It rules you. And on you go, following it, never satisfied. Why can't we sit still and meditate? Because we got craving coming up. Craving to talk to someone, craving for food, craving to move because our body feels a bit uncomfortable, craving to sleep at this time. I'm sure if I carry on talking for another hour or two, you'll all be desiring to go to sleep. Maybe you'll actually be falling asleep, I don't know. But these are the causes of our suffering. Ajahn Chah said, look at it. It arises in your heart. Craving, attachment don't arise out there somewhere in the world. They arise in your heart. Your heart is the world. And the way to make your heart peaceful is understand this, watch it and let go. As Ajahn Kampong said earlier, Ajahn Chah liked to say, if it's no good, let it die. If it won't die, make it good. That's our heart he's talking about. Every thought, every desire, attachment that comes up, stirs you up, just let it die right there. Or turn it into something good. If you have anger, turn it into kindness and compassion. If you have greed, turn it into contentment. If you have delusion, confusion, stress, turn it into wisdom. And then your mind will go peaceful. If you keep doing that long enough, greed, anger, delusion will gradually be reduced from your mind. It will disappear altogether. That's another reason why we're here, because we believe Luang Por Chah was somebody who did that for himself. He proved that what the Buddha taught is true. This human heart can be purified of greed, anger and delusion. So he's like one of the greatest gifts the world has had. Indeed, in Thailand there's been many great teachers, monks and nuns and lay people who have practiced this and proven that what the Buddha taught is true. You can purify your mind of greed, anger, and delusion, experience the highest peace, the highest happiness in this very life. It's possible. Many people overseas don't believe it's possible because they only know Buddhism through books, and it's very easy to dismiss a book, move on to something else. But if you come and meet someone like Ajahn Chah or some of the other great teachers that are still alive, you start to believe it is possible. You get faith, you get belief, and then you want to try it out. So when I think of Thailand, I live in Australia these days, but when I think of Thailand, I just think of all those great teachers, how they practiced. It makes me very happy. I was lucky. I lived here for many years, so I have good memories and I know the place. But that's why you're all here. You come to Wat Nong Bapong. It's like a magnet. A magnet is something that pulls people in, and this is not something. It's not some kind of master plan or some kind of malicious trick to get people into a monastery. It's coming through the purity, the goodness, the wisdom, the compassion of Ajahn Chah, channeling what the Buddha taught in this day and age. And then now his disciples, his students like yourselves, are also practicing it and proving to the world that it's true. A couple of years ago I was here at this time and we had a group of Europeans come, maybe 30, 40 people come who had, most of them had never been here before, and it was during an afternoon session. Everyone's meditating just like you are now, sitting quietly, peacefully in the forest, thousands of people, thousands of monks and nuns. And they came in and they asked, how many people are here? I said, well, if you add everybody up together, maybe 5,000 or 6,000. And they stopped and thought about it and then realized, it's very peaceful, just like it is now. If I stop talking, all you can hear is the crickets, the distant sound of traffic maybe. It's very calm, very peaceful. So they all were astonished. They all opened their mouths and said, 6,000 people, all like this, just peaceful. Impossible, never seen this before. You may be in a public event, you get a minute's silence or something sometimes. They do that for somebody who's passed away. But this isn't a minute silence, this is a whole day, a night of silence, practicing the Dhamma together. It's all done out of faith in Buddha, faith in Ajahn Chah. You yourselves are proving that what the Buddha taught is true. There's two things Ajahn Chah used to say are very hard about Dhamma practice. One is getting started, because we always have reasons why we don't want to do it, and excuses and distractions, even though many people in the world think it probably is a good idea, but they don't actually get to start. They just follow their doubts, their worries, their prejudices, so they don't start. So overcoming that hurdle is an important part of the practice, obviously. You've got to learn how to start doing it. The second hardest thing is not stopping. So learning to start it and then not stopping. Not a lot there to it, is it really? You start and then don't stop. And he said if you don't stop, you'll gain something. You'll gain some wisdom, some peace of mind. Your mind will improve because the longer you practice, the more you do it, the better you get at it. It is a skill, just like any other skill. If you keep doing it, you don't stop, you learn to understand your mind better, you learn how to live with the world more peacefully, live with yourself more peacefully. So Ajahn Chah used to say, it doesn't matter if you're practicing well and you keep practicing, whether you're on your own or you're in a place with 5,000 people, you can be peaceful. How often do you hear people say about Wat Pong, they say, I don't want to go there, there's too many people, too much happening, it's noisy, busy. But it's not noisy and busy, is it? You're all sitting here very peacefully. It's more about your own mind. Your own attachments come up to stop you practicing. They always find excuses. You can practice here with 5,000 people, or when you all go home, there'll be a few monks and nuns left. They can carry on practicing when it's quiet as well. It doesn't matter. You have to make the effort, and the practice is about making effort. Ajahn Chah was very clear with that. It doesn't happen by itself. It's not random. It's not just depending on a god or the monks to bless you. It has to come through your own effort. Like you're doing now, sitting here, listening to a talk in a language you don't understand, takes effort. To sit and walk meditation takes effort. Keep the precepts takes effort. Do the chanting takes effort. The word for effort is virya. Virya. One of Luang Por Liam's favourite phrases, viryena dukkha machedi. Dukkha, suffering, will be overcome through effort. You have to put effort into the practice. Even making dana, making food. The food stalls, they start cooking food 3 a.m., get it ready for Bindapata and for all of you to eat. That takes effort. Meditation, sitting for a long time without moving, it takes effort. So we have to learn how to summon up effort. And then once we're doing that, we have to keep it going. It takes even more effort to keep doing the practice. Not just for 3 days, 5 days on retreat and then go home and stop it all. You have to go home and find ways to introduce the Dhamma practice into your daily life as well. Sitting, walking meditation at home, doing chanting, listening to the Dhamma at home. This is what we have to learn, how to bring up effort, bring up that sincerity, that honesty that you really want to practice to understand your own mind, to free it from suffering. It can be done. And when you practice the Dhamma, they have a saying, the Dhamma looks after one who practices the Dhamma. Right? We're all looking for someone to look after us. Really, if you practice well, the good causes that you're making will look after you. Just before I left Australia, there was one man coming to tell me how his practice was always getting into trouble because he wants to keep the 5 precepts every day. Because he knows it's a good thing and he wants to develop his practice. But he's in trade, and once in a while his boss tells him, you've got to go and look after the customers. The customers are here from overseas and you've got to take them out for dinner and you've got to drink with them, drink alcohol. And he's going, oh no, I want to keep the 5 precepts. And it's like, if you don't get this deal done, you're going to lose your job. You've got to get them happy, you've got to take them out for a drink. This is like Mara, isn't it? Your boss becomes Mara, telling you you've got to go out and have alcohol when you're trying to keep the 5 precepts. So he thought about it, he thought, how can I do this? Well, really my aim is to get the deal done, negotiate, talk, get the deal done. Whether I drink or not is secondary, it doesn't matter. So if I can get the deal done by keeping the precepts, fine. Then my boss should be happy, the customer's happy. So he thought, well, I'll just try it. Today I'm going to believe the Buddha and the teachers, and I'm going to keep the precepts and try and finish the deal. So he took his clients out, and they did want to drink wine, whatever, beer, whatever they drink, but he kept to water or juice, whatever he had. He refused to take alcohol, but he still looked after them, and they talked. And at the end of the meeting, the client said, we're going to sign the contract, you'll get the deal done. And he said, oh, I'm very happy. And they said, you know why? He said, no. He said, because we see that you're somebody who's very determined, you're very honest, and you're very determined in what you do. We know you don't want to drink, so today you haven't drunk even though you're supposed to be buying us alcohol, drinking with us, but you didn't, because you have your own principle. We like that. We actually like that. So the clients were impressed by his 5 precepts, so it got the deal done. So sometimes you stick to what you plan because of what the Buddha taught. It may actually lead you to progress and do well in the world as well. A lot of people think Buddhists are kind of like old-fashioned, out-of-date losers. They're not going to get on in the job they do, the things they do. Well, it's not necessarily true. Maybe it can also have its benefit. You keep the 5 precepts, maybe people are impressed by that and they want to work with you and help you and do things together with you. You keep the precepts, it makes your mind peaceful and happy. You're not bothering or harming anyone else. People like that. In the same way, if we don't practice, what happens? Well, one thing tends to lead to another. So if we give up the practice, we stop, often people's mind goes downhill very quickly, doesn't it? People who used to go to the monastery, do dana, practice generosity, keep precepts, meditate, and then for some reason or other they quit. Often they end up very unhappy. They've turned their back on something very good. So if you turn your back on something very good, what's left? It's only the very bad. Even Buddhists can get caught by this. Sometimes our kilesas, our greed, anger, delusion come up even in the midst of our practice, and sometimes we're not clear in what we're doing. So Luang Por Chah said, learn to be clear in your intention. Develop that sense of shame and awareness about your intention, whether it's good or bad, wholesome, unwholesome. And if you're in doubt, don't do it. Don't say it. Don't go there. We really have to clean out our minds from greed, anger, and delusion. So you have to be thorough. And sometimes you have to be really strong and say, no, I'm not going to do that. It doesn't sound good. I don't think it will be good for me or other people. But if you have that determination, you can bring your mind up in every situation. When you're feeling lazy, do some dana, practice generosity, help someone, brings your mind up, makes you feel, it cushions your mind. What we call making merit, the word you hear all the time in Thailand, tambun. Making merit brings you happiness, brings your mind a sense of joy, happiness, you're doing something good, helping people, helping the monastery. Keeping sila, the same. You keep the 5 precepts for a day, you feel happy. You feel content that you've done at least one day, you haven't hurt anybody or any living thing, you've done the right thing for a day. You feel good about that. It brings your mind up, if nothing else. Practicing meditation is the same. Just a few moments of mindfulness, already you will feel a little bit better. And many moments of mindfulness, developing a meditation like the breath meditation or recollecting the Buddha will bring you many moments where your mind feels refreshed, calm, and you start to experience more what we call piti and sukha, rapture, inner happiness, sense of well-being will come up the more effort you put into it. And this is the real purpose of the practice, to bring the mind up, the level of the mind up, let go of the hindrances, the more negative states of mind, confused states of mind, bring the mind to one-pointedness where you're mindful and present in the moment. Then you can really understand what is suffering and its cause. You can see when you're attached, you suffer. What is attachment? Well, maybe sometimes it's that view that something that's impermanent, you're believing falsely that it's permanent. Example, this body. We go along in our life assuming we're going to live forever and we want to live forever, but this body is impermanent. It's anicca. Rupang anicca. Your body is degenerating all the time. It won't last forever. So accept that and let go of the attachment. Just accept the way it is. Or else we're attached to things that are bringing us suffering, thinking they're bringing us happiness. Like the guy with the drink. Some people think with drinking you're going to get happy. It just brings you more suffering. It's a wrong view. Endlessly accumulating more wealth doesn't bring you endless happiness, it brings you suffering, because that wealth will leave you, depart from you when you die. Or the hardest one is that attachment to the view of self. We believe this body and mind, the things, all the experiences we have belong to a self. They're me, mine, myself. This is a delusion. But as you investigate with this peaceful mind, you can see through that. See, this body is not a self. Feelings are not self. They arise and pass away according to causes and conditions. Thoughts are not a self. We chant this every morning. Rupang anatta, Vedana anatta, Sanya anatta, Sankhara anatta, Vijnana anatta. What we call this body and mind, or the 5 khandhas, they're not a self, but we deludedly take ownership of them and then we suffer. So keep contemplating impermanence, that will help. Your thoughts, moods change on you, don't they? One moment you're happy, next moment you're bored, next moment you're irritated, next moment you're sad, then you're happy again. Just in one day, how many moods do you experience? And these moods are conditions of mind, they're impermanent, they're not self. When you're mindful and aware and you contemplate that, you can see it. Same with this body. If you look more closely at the body, you'll realize the body is not that attractive. It's constantly changing. It's heading towards decay, death, unfortunately. That's the truth of it. Ajahn Chah used to tell the monks, practice until you can see the skeleton in your body and then the skeleton in everyone else. When you're walking through the monastery, can you see these people as skeletons? Or are you thinking, oh, he's handsome, she's good looking, he's ugly, she's not good looking? And most of the time we're just caught up in the external, aren't we? It's a keep focusing on the 32 parts of the body over and over again. It's one of the chants we do. Kesa loma nakadanta tacho. This body is impermanent, it's unattractive, it's not a self. Practice until you can see it as just a pile of bones. If we stripped all the skin off everybody here, it would just be bones, wouldn't it? Flesh and bones, you wouldn't know who's male, female, young, old. It would take away all that external attachment that we get so caught up in. That's why we have this skeleton to remind us. People are not sure why there's a skeleton in here. Maybe you are, the Thais are, but the Westerners that come, they don't know why there's a skeleton here. Is that a monk who was punished? It's a teaching aid. When I first came here, if you didn't have a kuti, they put you in here to sleep for 3 nights to test your faith. Some people would run away after 1 night because they were with the skeleton. They thought, I can't manage this. It brings up fear, brings up revulsion, brings up doubt. But it's a teaching aid. It's teaching us the truth. This body is just a skeleton. When we die, it goes back to the earth. We don't own this earth. We don't own this body. We don't own the world. Once you start letting go, you feel better. You feel happier. So these are just a few thoughts on what Luang Por Chah taught and why we're here. Time is getting on. You've all very patiently listened to me, even though I think most of you didn't understand what I said. Maybe I'll finish the talk there and wish you all, as I said, a happy new year. May you all continue with your practice and continue to come back to Ajahn Chah's monastery or some of the other Ajahn Chah monasteries around the world. May you progress in the Dhamma. May you be free from illness and suffering. May you find true peace, true happiness in your hearts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you แปลว่าขอบคุณมากๆ
ก็
เตรียมตัวพนมมือขึ้นครับครับครับที่แสดงธรรมจบลงไปก็คือหลวงพ่อเจ้าคุณโสพลภาวนาวิเทศโน่นท่านข้ามทวีปมาก็ขออนุโมทนาให้หลวงพ่อมีสุขภาพแข็งแรงเป็นร่มโพร่มไทรของชาวพุทธไปตลอด